We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 Strength and Health Authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode. Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Strong by Design podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Great to be with you. Listeners, I want to say thank you so much for following us and to coming back for more of our great content. And if you're a first-time listener, you're in for a real treat. This is a fun conversation today, something I've been looking forward to for a while. We almost made this happen last month virtually. I think I was having some technical difficulty. And actually, we're going to have a good laugh about that because I ended up finding out what the issue was. And I just realized what the issue was yesterday when I was on a team Zoom call, and I needed help from my staff here to help me come to a conclusion on something. But I want to just take a moment of gratitude just to say thank you for choosing Strong by Design. It means so much to us to have all of our fantastic listeners. If there's just one new person that we're reaching with this conversation today, that makes us feel good, because this podcast is a ministry for us. It's a way to give back. It's a way to offer our help and our experience and our wisdom in this world, in the different areas of life, right? Whether you're looking to be stronger in body and mind and spirit, we go in all directions on this show. Some shows have all three of those things. Some are focused more on one or the other. And so we would ask you to certainly share this conversation with somebody, a friend or a family member who needs to hear this at the end. Just hit those three little dots if you're listening on iTunes, and then you can just share just a couple of clicks, or hit that 5-star rating and review at any point in this conversation or at the end of it. That means so much to us as well. Makes us more visible in the world of podcasting. And so we thank you for that in advance. Now, our guest today, Mr. Luis Diaz, is really, as I was saying before I hit record, a catalyst to this show even existing. We had no intention of starting a podcast in the beginning of 2018. We really didn't. And all it took was about an hour-long conversation with you when we were at a Russell Brunson event up in Orlando, right?
Yeah. With
Mike, and it was at lunch. And then I think we spoke again at dinner.
Yep.
And on the way home, Mike's like, so I guess we're starting a podcast. And I'm like, you mean I guess I'm starting a podcast.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we started working with this man. So welcome to Strong by Design, finally, after coming into our 4th season.
Yeah, dude, thank you for letting me be here. It's been awesome to see you guys grow from that lunch conversation where Mike was drilling me with questions, and I'm like, what's his intention behind this? Because it was not on my radar, and then
right.
We started talking some more, and here we are.
Yeah.
So it's been awesome to see you guys grow. So thanks for having me.
It is. It's just another, it was, I guess, in a lot of ways, it was just like a missing element to our business where we felt like we could be kind of giving back a little bit more. We're always finding ways to try and give back, whether that's locally, where we are part of some different organizations and we give back on a regular basis. But we are able to use our platforms and our position in the world of, the online world, in this fitness and health space, and this, but to be able to reach people in a way where maybe they weren't expecting, to be touched. And what I mean by that is, just because we promote muscle strength, fitness, health, getting out of pain, eating better, all of these different things, it doesn't mean that we can't go into other areas of your life.
Of course.
And that's why this show is so meaningful to us, because life isn't all just about like how you look and how strong you are in the gym. How strong are your relationships? Are you a good parent? Are you doing a good job of putting away for tomorrow in terms of like finances and stuff. So we go everywhere on this show. You know, are you a leader?
Yeah.
Are you a coach? You know, so we have these wonderful conversations which I feel benefit us just as much as the people listening. You know, we learn so much from the people that we have on this show.
Absolutely.
So that's what makes it so much fun. So Luis is started Podcast Domination, right?
Yeah.
And how long has it been now that you've had this?
Not too much. You guys were one of our first handful of clients we started working with. So 2017, like 4 or 5 years.
So yeah, 4 coming into your fifth year or so.
Yeah.
And as I said at this just a moment ago, we had no real intent. We knew one day we would probably do a podcast.
Yeah.
But we had so many other things going, and you know, people the term irons in the fire. You know, and we already felt like we had enough irons in the fire. You know, we were squirreling enough,
right?
And then all of a sudden, I felt like, here we go, we're squirreling again, and we're going to have a podcast. But what it does is it opens up these relationships and these conversations with people that you can have ongoing, and it can help you in business. You know, it's a great side effect of meeting all of these wonderful people in the podcast world. And I would say probably 2/3 or 3/4 of the people that we podcast with are themselves podcasters, which is really neat, you know, because it's just become one of those, like, you know, if you have a big platform and you want to use that platform to reach more people, you say, well, let's have a podcast too. You know, we have a YouTube or we have a big Instagram. Let's also do a podcast because it really, people are listening. There's new podcasts coming out every single day, and there must be well into the millions right now. What would you say the number of podcasts?
There's about like 2 to 2.5 million podcasts now.
Wow.
Yeah, not all of them are active though, so it's the market's still pretty open if you look at it like that.
Right. I think there's a lot of, I forget what the stat is, but it's like 90% of them don't get past like episode 7 or 8 or something like that, right?
It's some crazy statistic where it's like a lot of them fail before the first 10 episodes. So if you have the longevity and you have a message that you can stand behind, it can evolve over time. But if you have something you really, like you guys use as a ministry and you really, really share some really great messages on this platform, and that's why I think you guys have been able to last as long as you do, because you truly believe in what you're saying and what you're putting out there.
Right.
And I think that's what it takes for people to be successful in the long term, because it's a marathon.
It is a marathon, and a lot of people want these sprints and this instant success or overnight success. And anybody who's really successful will tell you it didn't happen overnight. There was like 5 or 10 years of hard work behind the scenes before this happened. Yeah. There was a lot of failures before this happened. And you have to have that thick skin and be able to go through some stuff, some trials. Those are learning experiences. You know, you have to look at your failures and your mistakes as, well, what can I learn from this and not do again? You know, what can I learn from other people's mistakes? You know, so let's go back to that time period. So, you know, we didn't really know you very well. We met you when you first came here for that big celebrity, what we called like a fitness celebrity workout, right? It was a Vince Delmonte event that was local here.
It was.
And we had like 20 some odd people, most of which we had never met before, here for a workout. This is about 3.5 years ago. And we first met you there. And then it's just like a month or two later that we hooked up at ClickFunnels event and started talking about this. And we didn't know you well enough. From that first time we met you to the second time, we were like, okay, you're kind of getting into this podcast space. Yeah, we've thought about that, you know. And then all of a sudden, you know, we're having these really lengthy, deep conversations with you. And so, take us back to that time period. What you were going through? What was your passion? What was your mission? What was this drive that you had to get this going?
Yeah. So before I got into the podcasting space, I was in the fitness space.
Right.
So I looked up to you guys because, like I was saying at lunch, like I was at UCF in Orlando, a college kid trying to put on muscle, and I was watching Elliot Hall's Critical Bench. I was watching Ben Pakulski on YouTube and trying to figure out this whole muscle thing. Then I wanted to turn it into a career. And then, along that way, I met Vince and joined his mastermind. And he was actually the first guy to kind of transition me like, hey, Louis, you're not good at fitness. I appreciate him for telling me that. He didn't say it as blunt as that, but he kind of transitioned me into like, hey, you're doing this thing with podcasting. Maybe you can turn that into a business. Maybe that's probably a better avenue for you. And I thank God that I listened and I wasn't thick-skinned or thick-skulled. And I think it was around that time. That was probably maybe 6 to 8 months. That conversation was 6 to 8 months before I met you guys.
Yeah.
So I was just getting into it, helping a few people out here and there. And for me, I kind of looked at, I've always been kind of good at being a bridge and being a connector and being someone who can facilitate a message or a relationship really, really well and help people that way. Like I'm a connector, I'm a natural connector. So the podcasting, interviewing thing came easy to me because it was my personality.
Right.
So when I met you guys, this was kind of like when I had just turned the page from fitness person, online coach, online info product seller, to agency or more working with people one-on-one to help them with launch their podcast and grow it successfully. So that's kind of the space I was in. So super new and green to the space.
Right.
My first podcast failed miserably. I was one of those statistics that didn't get past episode 10 or something.
I'll tell you, man. I've seen some of those people. I've even listened to a few of those shows where you're like waiting for the next episode and you never the next one never drops. You're like, oh, I guess they're done.
Yeah. So I was there, and I think I learned so much from that first podcast experience that I built the second one in a way that was low stress and able to have longevity, like going back to that word. And that's kind of my first taste of like, oh, okay, here's if you do it right, here's what it can happen to you. Yeah. Here's where it can take you. So it became a cool experimental vehicle for me to start using that experience and knowledge from that second show to helping other people launch and grow their own. So
yeah, without question, man. The discipline is really what prevents a lot of success in life. It's I just started getting more disciplined with my eating. As we were talking at lunch with Will Grazione, the educated dieter, Frank Rich. Yeah. We had some good company and some high level, high achieving type guys. And the only way you're going to get to a certain place is when you have goals and a plan to get there, actionable steps, and you're held accountable.
Yeah, that's the word.
And the discipline, and that goes in all areas of your life. Whether you're trying to get fit, or you're trying to be more financially stable, or you're trying to lose weight, right? Or you're just trying to run a podcast.
Yeah.
If you don't have an episode recorded, ready to go, then all of a sudden you have an erratic upload schedule, and then people don't know when to listen to you. They don't know that every Monday or every Wednesday or whatever day of the week it is that you're going to go live with something. Then you lose your audience. So obviously we're going to go down all these different roads, like the do's and don'ts of but so people listening, they know this is about like. They're listening to a podcast about how to get going, how to podcast. So what does it take to start a podcast? What would you tell the person listening right now? What are the basics, the must-haves to start being successful?
We'll take this from two parts. One, we'll take it from maybe a mindset or content angle, and the other one we'll take it from like a more tactical equipment angle. So we'll cover the easy stuff first. So, because I know everyone always asks about the mics and all the equipment. Yes. It's like, it's really not that hard, I promise you. So from a equipment tactical perspective, you're going to need probably a microphone. I've even seen, Chris, I've seen people use their phone for a podcast. I don't recommend that, but like if you want to keep it really simple and lean, you can do that. But one of my favorite mics that I always recommend to clients is an ATR 2100X, which is like, it's going to run you maybe $100 on Amazon. With that, you plug that into a computer or laptop, and you're good to go from a recording perspective. Literally, if you have a free Zoom account, and you're good to go.
Right.
So that will take care of your recording for your podcasting. Outside of that, the only other thing, I may be lying about this, but I'm pretty sure it's the only other thing you need, is a Captivate account or an Anchor. Basically, you've probably heard of Anchor, Chris. It's a hosting platform to store all of your audio files.
Right.
And you guys have Libsyn, so that's another one too. So that's literally with that, those two pieces, the mic and the hosting account, which you can use Captivate or Libsyn or Anchor, that's really all you need. You can get on Apple, you can get on Spotify, and people can actually hear your message with that. Now, if you want to have a good podcast, obviously there's a lot more that goes into it. Like
Right.
we're talking about like anything with fitness or getting serious about your business or finances, there's a lot of small things that you need to be doing or need to be, keeping track of. But from a tactical perspective, that's really all you need.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the mindset.
Right.
And more of the thing that's going to make you go from maybe basic to good and good to great. I would say number one, it is an exciting or a topic that people care about. And it doesn't mean you need to have 1 million people care about it or 1,000 or 100,000 or a huge number of people. It needs to be a number that is significant to you. So for me, if I launch a podcast, I want to make sure I have at least one listener or one audience member. Because if we take this from like maybe a business perspective, I mean, not everyone here listening to this maybe not need to care for that. But if you can impact one person's life with your podcast, you've done your job. Case in point, I had a client the other day. She has a small audience. She was like, I don't know if anyone's going to care about what I'm going to talk about. And I was like, if let's just say you have 25 people listen, and out of those 5 of those people reach out to you and say how great of an episode that was. Wouldn't you be leaping or being super excited that 5 people reached out to you and actually cared about your message? So the exact number is nebulous, but like make sure you're talking about something that like you care about and someone else is actually going to care about and find value about. And that could be talking about old baseball cards. It can be whatever you want it to be. But
Right.
I find a lot of people will. I think you guys have done a good job with this. You've kind of kept the content exciting to you and exciting to at least someone else you probably know in the back of your head. Like, oh, I know this episode is going to help so and so. So you're creating content that you guys care about and that other people are going to care about. Right. So I think that's one super important thing, because I've seen a lot of podcasts will burn out because the topic they're talking about they're just not passionate about anymore. Right. And it makes sense. Like, who wants to podcast if you don't care about the topic, or you don't feel like anyone else cares about it? That's right.
It starts with the person's voice. It starts with the enthusiasm, the passion, the love,
Mm-hmm.
all those things that make whatever it is that you're speaking on important. To you, if it's important to you, and you speak about it with passion and really trying to provide value or help someone on the other end of the conversation, that people feel that, But if you're talking about something and it's kind of just you're just on to be on, right, and there's no real direction. I think, and that's where it's probably what it's like, you can have all the right things for episode 1 through 5, but if you've already run out of material, you know what I mean? Like,
if you don't care about it, if they don't, if you feel like no one else cares about it, then it's going to be hard to keep moving forward. So I think it's 2 things. It's make sure people care about your topic and make sure you actually are passionate and care about whatever it is you're talking about. I talk about podcasting because I like talking about podcasting because I know it's helped my life. Like, I've had podcasts where I literally cried. They were sermons or there's something like where I feel like God's speaking to me, and it's like through that podcast, like I literally just bawled out crying. Right. And because I know it can change lives. And I think that's why I'm really passionate about it. I can talk about it for hours. Right. So I think it's understanding that you've got to care about it, and then other people in your audience who you're trying to reach need to care about this topic.
I mean, a good example, I was just listening on my drive in today to one of our past episodes, recent ones. It was episode 1. I'm probably going to get the number wrong. I think it was 165. As Long as It Makes You Happy was the title of the episode. It was talking about happiness being like the reason for people's existence. People live just to be happy. Right. It's like we're pretty much saying, like, well, no, like happiness is a very fleeting feeling. But we went deep on it, like real deep, with 2 guys that are very close friends, and we went biblical with it. We really tried to go deep on what is happiness, what is purpose, what is fulfillment, what is what is all that, what are the differences, what's joy versus happiness, and I'm listening to it, and I was part of the conversation, but it's so different to sit back and then just listen as a listener rather than a participant. and to be able to really focus on the other things that were being said rather than what my contribution was.
Yeah.
And I got so much more out of that conversation, and I was there, you know, so I can only imagine what, you know, the power of a conversation.
Yeah.
And that's what podcasting is. Like, whether that's, I think this is important too. And I want your perspective on this. Do you think the best podcasts are ones where it's just one voice, or do you feel like it's one where it's somebody that's always got someone else that's part of a conversation, where it's an interview, more of an interview-based podcast, or can you have success with both? You
can totally have success with both. I've seen people who are just great at delivery. They're great delivering content. One of my favorite pastors is Stephen Furtick. Mm-hmm. He doesn't need an interview.
Right.
Like, he can deliver a message, you know, on his own beautifully.
Right.
Other people play great off others. You know what I mean? So I think it's having both skills is very hard. I've noticed. I've even had, like, you've seen clients where, like, they're used to interviewing, but then you put them in a solo and they just can't do it.
Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting, but both are good. It's more about which one gets the best out of you.
Right.
So, like, I feel like you, Chris, like, you do really good with interviews. You're great at connecting with people, and that actually makes that like brings your game higher. Some people can go there on their own. I find that, like, I go through seasons in life. Sometimes I don't want to talk to anybody, so I'll do a bunch of solos.
Yes.
Other times I'll do some interviews because I feel like I need to have somebody to play off of a little bit here and there.
I agree. I think it's a personality thing. I think it's an individual thing. Mm-hmm. I think I perform better when I'm in conversation, when I'm connecting with somebody else. Yeah. Or that could be 3 other. We've done podcasts with the four of us, versus me just being a solo act.
Yeah.
But then I feel like some people can just monologue. They got something to say.
Yeah.
And they're going to say it with fire and with passion and with humor and with all these other things. And I feel like in the moment I might be capable of that. Like maybe in the right when I get done with doing something and it's fresh in my mind.
Exactly.
But it's hard to bring that fire to a conversation if I'm all by myself.
Yeah.
But I get fired up when I'm with other people talking about something.
Yeah, especially if you're in the room like this, like you are. Like, you've created the right environment here for podcasting and connecting with people.
Right.
So I think that's the end result for this at the end of the day, is having better connections on the back end after the interview.
Our team would like to thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. And if you're enjoying today's show, please share this episode with at least one friend or family member who will benefit from this message. And please subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Go to strongbydesignpodcast.com. That's strongbydesignpodcast.com. Let's get back to the show.
We talked about having the right content, the things that you care about, things that other people care about. I feel like that's kind of an obvious one, but it's something that I think sometimes gets overlooked. Outside of that, I'd say the second thing you really want to make sure you have to be a successful podcaster is to have really clear metrics as to, like, what is it for you that's going to get you out of bed in the morning? Is it the downloads? Is it, I want to get to 100 episodes? We had a guy who came in, he's like, I want to hit 50 episodes. I'm like, never had that goal before, but okay, let's do it. And the guy's super successful, and his whole thing was, I don't care about numbers. All I care about is hitting that number 50, like 50 podcast episodes within like 4 months or something.
Yeah.
Because he knew that volume, he was getting his reps in.
Yeah.
And he was a gym guy. He runs a gym, and mad successful guy, and he had a metric that he was happy and he wanted to pursue. So whatever that is for you, it could be reviews, it could be ratings. I don't care, but have a 6-month goal, have a 12-month goal, and commit to maybe evaluating after that time period whether you want to keep going or not.
Right. I think that's extremely important, that you're having a metric in mind that's important to you, that means something to you. And I think that's I remember about a year ago, not quite a year ago, it was last December, I was out in San Diego and I got to fly up to San Jose and have the guys of Mind Pump.
Oh, cool.
On the show, on
awesome.
Strong by Design. And I was invited to come and use their facility to record an episode for us, right? Which was really neat.
Yeah.
So I met all the guys, Sal and Justin and Adam and then Doug, the producer, and we were all together. And Sal, I think it said at one point, he said, what we notice is every 200 episodes, we just kind of go up a level. Mm-hmm. And they have a lot of episodes. They do like 4, 5, 6 uploads a week.
Yeah.
They do a lot of content. And so they're really good at podcasting because they podcast a lot.
Yeah.
But he said even that all of them feel like a level up every like few hundred episodes, like they've just something clicks to a different level. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important, is getting those reps, as you said.
Yeah.
Like anything in life, it's just that experience, those reps, and you're going to get better.
Yeah, I've watched them for a long time, and I remember seeing them back in, like 2016, 2017. Mm-hmm. They were just starting to get a hang of things. You could see them kind of steadily go up.
Yeah.
And if anyone doesn't know them, check them out, because they're definitely an interesting bunch, dynamic bunch to look at and to study their work. But like, first of all, when it comes to downloads and numbers, if we're talking that, obviously podcasting, if people love your podcast, they're going to go back, and if they find one episode they love, they usually go back and listen. Either they'll do one of two things. They either go back to episode 1 and then listen all the way forward, depending on if they're type A or type B or whatever. It's weird. Right. My wife does this. She finds a podcast and she goes back and listens to episode 1. And I'm like, why did you do that? That episode's in 2012.
Hopefully it's evergreen, honey.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I listen to the more recent stuff, but they'll either do that or they'll go back and listen to you, and they'll just go from most recent to least recent.
Yes.
So if you have a lot of episodes, it plays in your favor, because now they've got a bank of content.
Oh my gosh.
That they're going to, I get to the point, Chris, where I listen to podcasts so much where I'll know the person's mannerisms, and I'll start copying their mannerisms or their speech, their dialect, and it's kind of weird. But that's the kind of cool thing you can get out of it, is people can really learn your personality.
Yes.
Where it's sometimes hard in the written word, or if you're scrolling on Instagram, to really pick those things up if you're not listening for hours.
No doubt. I've become a super fan of more than a few podcasts where I'm just listening all the time.
What are your favorites? Tell me your favorites.
Well, one of my favorites is I've mentioned he's going to be on the show again soon here for the second time. Frank Turek, who is a Christian apologist, and he's just
cool.
He's a New Jersey guy. He's got personality for days. Yeah. He's super sharp. He's a Navy guy, so he's a great husband, a great father, and he's bringing the gospel to women, men, boys, girls of all ages, all around this country. He's a Christian apologist is somebody that helps to spread the gospel, defend the gospel, and whether you're Christian or you're not. I think he has such a great message, and he's very insightful, and he's been around the block a few times in life, and he has a lot of great messaging in his. So I just look forward to going back to what you had said when I was turned on to him for the first time. It was about 2.5 years ago, and I started listening to all his stuff. So I went back like a year. Yeah. Actually, I was listening irregular. Like, I would listen to the new episode, and then I'd go back and scroll and be like, oh, I'm going to listen to that one today. I ended up, over the course of a year and a half, 2 years, I listened to everything that was out there that he had. Yeah. And then so every week when the first one comes, I'm hitting it on Mondays. Right. He releases on Saturdays. By Monday, when I'm on my drive to work. Another one I listen to quite often. I love Craig Rochelle. The leadership podcast. He's amazing. I listen to the Power Break podcast, which is a smaller podcast, but the two gentlemen that we've had on our show a few times, Bob and John, they're amazing. They're really, really good. Born to Impact with Joel Marion is really great. And I'm thinking, gosh, what's another one that there is another one that I listen to on a regular, but I'm blanking on it right now. But a lot of the stuff that I'm listening to is either leadership or faith-based right now. Right. And then I'll listen to some Mind Pump stuff. Yeah. Or some of our recent guests that we've had on the show. I always make sure I listen for a little while to anybody that's going to be on the guest on the show, just so I get a feel for their style, their voice, their messaging and stuff. And it's so. Speaking of which, what are some of your favorite podcasts now?
This will be really funny. Maybe really funny. I don't know if you know my love for history, but I'm binge listening to a couple. Number one is called Real Dictators. So it's all about different dictators of the past: Stalin, Hitler, Mao. I forgot. Chairman Mao from China. Papa Doc from Haiti.
Oh my gosh,
it's really fast. I love history, so it's
it's
really
called
fascinating. Real Dictators.
Real Dictators.
It's like a documentary. Think of a documentary turned into a podcast. So it's a docu-style podcast.
Wow, that sounds great.
Yeah, very high production. Very, very well done. It's like a professional company that did that. But
so this would be a great podcast for anybody that loves biographies or autobiographies, which I've always loved. I find people fascinating.
Yeah.
So I'll have to check that out because
it goes deep into the mindsets of these guys, and they're horrible people. They're horrible. They killed millions of people.
Right.
But what I study and I take away from it is how they rose to power. Like, these guys are mostly poor.
They were successful in their mission of something
dictatorship or communism or whatever it is. But what I find interesting, these guys are nobodies. Like, they weren't born into power. They were born as peasants, or I think Hitler's father was like he was like a tax collector. So
one of the most hated people in the community, right?
Sinister, exactly. And it's just interesting to see how they thought, and like, first of all, learn what not to think, how not to think, and also learn how to think, or how to be influential, but use it for good. You know what I mean? So I try to take away the things that I can and learn, and I just love history anyways.
Right.
So
it's fascinating.
That's one, and the other one is The Game by Alex Hormozi.
Oh,
which is really, really interesting.
Yes.
More entrepreneurship podcast. I love that. Yeah, it's a good one. Good. I got to recommend it.
He and his wife started, what's their fitness business? That
Gym Launch.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they grew that, and that became a 8-9 figure.
Yeah, I think it's like
business.
$30 or $40 million, maybe even more.
Yeah. Wow.
But very interesting story. He's more entrepreneurship now, like not just gyms.
Yes. Right.
So I love that podcast.
Yeah. No, I saw them speak at an event that we were at. I forget which one it was at. I wonder if it was at the ClickFunnels one.
I think it was.
I think he was at that and spoke at that, right? Yeah. Very interesting story there. Mm-hmm. It's great. There's so much out there that's worth listening to, and that's why we always are so appreciative of anyone who found our show, who's listening to our show, because there's so much competition.
There's tons.
But in saying that, is it worth starting a podcast and being one of many voices out there? Is it worth it to the person listening right now who has interest in it? Maybe has a story to share, has a message they want to put out in the world. How can we let them feel like, it's worth it?
I think it's definitely worth it if you have something to share of value, and you think it can help at least one other person in this universe. Then absolutely you should. And it doesn't have to be an expensive thing. Doesn't have to be a long thing. It can just be you on a phone, plugged into a microphone or something that is about a hobby, or about your experience, or about some things that you're very passionate about. I think it's something that can be business oriented or more of a hobby based thing. And if you have one other person that you think would value this, then you should take the time to do it, study it online. There's lots of online courses and things.
Right.
So I think for anyone who has a message that they want to share, it's a great medium and a great platform that doesn't require video editing.
Right.
One of the things I loved when I got into it is I sucked at writing. I'm not good on camera, but I could talk. So I got into it because I just played to my strengths. So if you're like me, or that you like talking, then it's probably a good way to start to share. And also you build some really cool talents and strengths.
Yeah.
Like, you get to, if you're interviewing people, you have better interviewing skills, so it helps you in communication at work, communication with your family, meeting strangers. It's always kind of weird jumping on a Zoom call with someone you've never met before.
Right.
And I got to have a 60-minute conversation with them, right?
But sometimes you get off those calls and you go, that was an awesome conversation.
Yep.
I never met that person before in my life, and I just had a great hour-long conversation with them,
Yeah.
And then you feel like you really know somebody.
Yeah. So there's a lot of side benefits that come with it.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you can help impact at least one person, then it's worth it.
Yeah, it is. It does come down to that. And I know that might even sound cliche to somebody listening, like really, if your show just got one person listening. But honestly, it's about grabbing someone's attention and in some way making their life better.
Yeah.
Better than where it was when they started listening. Mm-hmm. Maybe they just have a new perspective on something. Maybe they learned something. Maybe you gave them the inspiration to take action on something. You know, it could be any little thing, and that's what we're driving after. You know, and I mean, we have with our episodes and our bonuses, like we're into the 200s theoretically, because we had a bunch of like in-betweener like bonus episodes that we were doing for a period of time. And, you say, even if each one of those podcasts individually resonated with one person, helped one person, like we just helped several hundred people.
You did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I know it's bigger than that because I know what the numbers are, so I know there's more impact there, and it's wonderful that we're touching the lives of people that we'll never ever meet.
Right.
All over the world. We've been number one in Nambia. I mean, in Sri Lanka, right? I mean, who does that? No, I mean, it's so fun to look at like Chartable and see, like where you're at and stuff. And anytime we're number one anywhere, we screenshot it.
There you go.
We've never been number one in the United States, but we've been number one. That's a real hard one there. There's a lot of competition there, but you can end up number one or top 10 in other parts of the world, and it's really neat and it feels good. It's like, man, we're number one in like this island or this country somewhere,
Exactly. It's always fun to see those stats. Yeah. For some reason, I'm very popular in Norway. Shout out to Norway. I don't know why, but
they just love the sound of your voice for some reason over there.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah. One last thing I'll say about that whole one person thing, because you're right, it could sound cliche, but here's the thing I know about people. People talk. So if you like someone's podcast, you're going to tell me. You just told me your favorite podcasts, right? I'm probably going to go listen or check out some of those. People listening are going to go check out those. So it's word of mouth.
Right.
Podcast growth, the holy grail to podcast growth that most people, 99% of people don't talk about. It's not ads. It's not, blasting it to your list. It's not, doing other crazy promotions. It's actually word of mouth. Mind Pump grew because their members and their people love them so much. This podcast grew because you guys put out great content, people talked about it, and other people were like, I'm going to go check that show out. That's how the best shows grow, and it's the best form of advertising. It's the best free form of advertising. 'Cause it's like, if a good friend recommends something to you, 9 times out of 10, then you're going to go check it out.
That's right.
Not an ad, not a something that's a pop up in your screen and then ask you for your email.
Right.
Like,
you might see a preview for a movie trailer at your house and blow it off 5-10 times. But if your buddy says, dude, I just saw such and such, it was amazing. You're gonna be like, okay, I gotta go see this.
Yeah.
Right. But you might not have given it a second thought, after seeing the commercials or hearing an ad for it or seeing an ad for it,
Yeah.
So interesting.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. To help our show reach more listeners just like you, please let us know how we've changed your life by leaving a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Go to strongbydesignpodcast.com. That's strongbydesignpodcast.com. Let's get back to the show.
You talked already about the basics, what people need. So I don't think we need to go down that road. But in terms of, people listening to a podcast, like they can't see your podcast, right? They got to be able to hear it.
Yeah.
Just dive for a second, a little bit deeper on that audio quality becoming like really, really important if you're serious. Like it's one thing to start the podcast with the phone or something with some, kind of like not so high quality mic.
Yeah.
But I feel like you're only going to get so much listenership that way. And I feel like you do need to eventually level up to having something that sounds rich and clean.
Yeah, it's a great point. So I always tell people it's like, spend six months with the basic equipment. It still sounds good if you know how to soundproof a room. You're not, doing it in a car or a tin can.
Right.
Like I have a very basic setup. My audio sounds decent because I just have a decent environment. So the biggest myth of equipment is that it's not really the equipment; it's actually the environment that dictates a lot of how you sound.
Yes.
So it's like you can have a basic mic, but if you have a great environment that's quiet, no distractions, you'll actually sound pretty good.
Yeah.
You could have AirPods. If you have a really fancy mic that is like a condenser mic, it's what they call it's like a studio quality mic, but you're recording and there's birds chirping and there's construction outside and kids yelling, it's going to sound horrible. I don't care how expensive the mic is. So spend 6 months, kick the tires with the cheap stuff, and then when you feel you're consistent and you're going to actually make benefit from the investment of the new equipment, then do it, then invest. We can go down the rabbit hole of equipment, and we'll take it from a microphone standpoint here. These mics we're actually using right now are really, really good. And I know they're in their Audio Technica, but what are they, just out of curiosity?
Well, I mean, honestly, besides that, what you just said, which is the brand, right, is Audio Technica, these are just headset mics, right?
Okay.
I don't know, like, the model or anything. We got these, I'm going to say about little over 2 years ago now, maybe 2.5.
No breakage, no nothing, same ones?
Same ones. These things are beasts. Yeah. We travel with these, so when we go on business trips, we bring these with. This is the little case I put everything in. It's got the H. Now, I do recommend. Now, originally, oddly enough, remember when you sent us about
like an H4? I think
you sent us like an H4 as like a gift. And I remember looking at this and going, "What the hell am I going to do with this?" Right? It came in the mail. He thinks we're going to record the podcast. This is when we were recording like through the computer. We were using the laptop and doing all that stuff with tabletop mics, and we didn't realize what you had sent us was so user friendly. If you just had a couple of microphones with the right, right hook, and like it mixes the show for you. That's the whole thing with these little Zoom. I call them Zoom recorder. I think Zoom is the brand.
Yeah.
But it's an H6 handy recorder is what this show is recorded on when we're in house. It sounds wonderful. It sounds we're in a studio.
Yeah.
We are sitting in the Critical Bench break room, hangout recreation room. We got a dartboard here. We got TVs. We got, we're actually sitting on it. This is a convertible pool table.
That's what this is.
Ping pong table. Yeah, so we've had this thing for years. This thing's a beast. It's just like our fun table. But the show can sound great. The acoustics in this room are not very good, but because we have these headset mics,
right,
it sounds wonderful,
and
rich, and just better than any of our other recordings if we're on a virtual call or anything like that. But you had alluded to this, and I think it's really important to talk about for the podcaster is the environment that they're in, and with the room size, the room acoustics in terms of the echoing and the bouncing of your voice off walls and stuff. Talk just for a moment about that.
Sure. So typically, if you want to have better audio quality, you're going to want to have a room that has carpet floors. You want to avoid having tile if you can, or if you have tile, then at least put a rug underneath you.
Right.
Some people I know, they'll do it in a closet. They'll do the recordings or solo recordings in a closet because guess what? A closet usually has carpet, has a bunch of clothes everywhere, so it's good for sound dampening. It's usually a smaller room. So carpet, smaller room. If you can avoid having windows in a room, I know sometimes like that's unavoidable, that's okay. But away from windows, that's better. That way you're not getting the sirens from like an ambulance flying around your road. It's a lot less, not going to bleed into the recording. A couple other things, like you mentioned the H6 here. Before we jump into that, we'll do a few other things for environments. In terms of, you mentioned you also have like the sound panels. So if you want to get sound panels on your walls to stop the echoing off the sound waves from bouncing off the walls, you can do that too. Those are super cheap on Amazon.
Yeah, $20 gets you 12 of the squares.
Yeah, for most people that should be perfect. You put them on your sides or in the corners. I've seen people put them on like the corners so that it doesn't like ricochet off the corners. That works really, really well. And then outside of that, I'd say headphones. So you like this. These mics are nice because they have both the microphone and the headphone all in one, right? So you don't have to fiddle around with two. But if you don't, just get some AirPods. If you already have those at work, just make sure they're charged up. Or you can get a pair of like professional, like studio quality headphones to plug into the computer, and that will make sure that the other person's voice doesn't bleed into your recording. So that's really, really important. So headphones, carpets, away from windows, mirrors, metal, things like that, where the your voice is going to bounce off and make an echoey effect.
Right.
So
and that right there can take your show from, just okay to really great sounding if you have that right environment with a decent mic.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
And you eliminate that outside noise, really, like you're saying, like if there's going to be conversations or TV or construction or machinery, anything in the background. You know what's funny? I got to bring this up. We have a few podcasts back. If people go back and listen, we had like 3 in a row.
Yeah.
About 3 in a row that the sound quality was not good. I actually made a bumper apologizing for the sound quality in the episodes. Mike had bought this ultra high speed, amazing gaming laptop, right?
Oh, I remember this. You told me about this, yeah.
But the darn thing had the world's loudest cooling fans built into it because it's like a high level gaming system laptop. Mm-hmm. But you don't know these things. You don't know when you buy it, and they could do nothing, even in some like software, to quiet these cooling fans. He ended up like barely. He's that's just going to be a gaming only laptop that I leave at home. I can't I can't record a conversation on this thing because as soon as that fan would start running, it sounded like a vacuum cleaner was running like right behind the person podcasting.
Yeah,
it's awful. But we didn't know this,
and
he could not hear it, which is annoying.
Right,
he couldn't hear it, but you could hear it in the recording after the fact.
Yeah,
and so anyway, it took us 3 episodes to rule that one out. I thought there was a first one. I thought there was a vacuum cleaner in the guest's house running.
Oh man,
the whole time. I'm like, why would his wife be vacuuming in the room adjacent room to the podcast? No, it wasn't his wife. So anyway, that's really important to talk about, and I appreciate the insight there, and I think that's very helpful. Whenever we go and give advice to people who want to start a YouTube channel, they think they need this whole, setup and cameras and busy. I'm like, no, you have a good iPhone and a little phone stand, like a little tripod.
Yeah.
That's all you need to start your YouTube channel. That's it. You don't have to invest much.
Right.
With like $100. You could probably do everything you need to do to start your podcast.
Yeah.
It's not that much.
And the paradox with that is if you get focused, like I some guys come to me and they want to spend $1,000 on their studio at home. And it's like, well, before we spend $1,000 on a studio that you don't even know how to work or use, let's worry about the content and the strategy of like how this is going to actually make sense for you long-term in your business and marketing and all that other good stuff. Because we can get, I actually bought this. I bought some equipment when I first got started and I was 24, 23. And I didn't even end up using it. I ended up selling it because I didn't know how to use it. I spent like 3 days trying to figure out how to set up this preamp. And all I realized I just needed to plug it into my computer and I could go. So keep in mind, complexity, this is what I learned just from Alex Ramosi. So simple scales, fancy fails. Simple scales and fancy fails. If you have a fancy setup, it's going to take you 30, 40, like this for you, this is super simple. Like you took like 5 minutes to set this up. Yeah. We got rolling. That's beautiful. If it takes you half an hour to get your podcast set up, you're never going to want to do it. Right. So you got to keep it super simple.
I love it. It is. It's the simple stuff in life that you. It happens quickly, and it's repeatable.
Yeah.
If it's complex, like people don't want to follow a complex workout. They want what are the movements?
Right.
What are the workout parameters? I don't want something that's going to give me anxiety. I want something that's really I can just go with it, and that's what I feel like with our setup. It's great. I unpack this bag, I get everything out. It's probably less than 5 minutes and it packs right back up. As soon as I pull the SD card out, I put the file on my computer, done, off to the editor.
Yeah.
It's great. And the sound quality is great. I don't have to mess with it in any way. He puts the show together nice and it sounds wonderful, So yeah, I think it's great. Mm-hmm. So I wrote here, besides recording and uploading content regularly, and episodes regularly, what would you say is the number one attribute for a serious podcaster or show? Because I think we've talked about how important it is just to be consistent with what you're doing and being disciplined. Mm-hmm. What do you think is another really big attribute for somebody who wants to get serious with podcasting?
I think it's knowing your listener, because you can be consistent as heck and great and all this stuff, but if you don't know what the market wants, it's going to be really hard to deliver what the market is going to bite at or going to click and download and all that good stuff. So you've really got to know your market. And then I think a second thing to this is that the best podcasts are entertainers.
Yeah.
I listen to Real Dictators because it's entertaining. It's not a history book. It's like there's different sound effects and there's cut-ins from experts, and then they have this guy with a British accent who does the narrating. He's awesome.
Right. So it's produced very well.
Exactly. So it's like it's entertaining. So you've got to. I'd say like the podcasts that I've seen do a really good job is that they pull you in. They pull you in within the first 30 seconds. So if you're listening to this and you want to launch a podcast and you want to have a good stick rate when it comes to listeners, you've got to make sure that first minute, 30 seconds is actually really captivating.
Right. So we should go back and redo the first minute of this episode, right? Because I think there's a lot of hot air and fluff coming out of my mouth. But at this point, I think they're used to it. They're like, oh, Chris is hosting today. Because we rotate, it's not just me. It's Mike. It's Tanya. And, obviously when Brian was still, part of the team full-time, Brian still comes back. For everyone listening, by the way, Brian Klepacki is not dead. He is still alive and breathing. He still comes out and works out with us. In fact, he was just here last week filming with us for YouTube content. So
cool.
He has just moved on a different chapter in his life, doing things, on his own, running his own stuff. But we still have a relationship there, and he is still a contributor for the business. But he used to be one of the full-time hosts as well.
I used to see him here all the time. Yeah,
all the time.
When I was here, I saw him.
Yeah,
the other time.
Well, he was a big part of our team from 2015. I think it was probably towards the end of 2014. I forget exactly when, but 2015 all the way through last year. So like a 5-year stretch, he was like,
there every day.
Big time part of the team. And then he, things change in people's lives, right? And he saw some opportunity and he went after it. So, it's just all things are good though for all those Brian fans out there, because I know there's a lot. We get the questions on YouTube all the time, like, "Where's Brian?" or "What happened to Brian?" or this. That. And he's still doing fine. Yeah. I promise you that. So I appreciate that. That's really good. Is know who your listener is and what they like. Like, what are your episodes that perform the best?
Exactly. Look at your numbers.
Look at your numbers. What are your top 10? Mm-hmm. We're so fortunate because our top 10 all-time downloaded episodes, it's a mix. It's the perfect mix of what our brand, Strong by Design, is all about.
Right.
You have stuff that's purely just faith and God. You have stuff that's like keto and brain. You have stuff that's like stretching. We have glutes. We have Todd Durkin. He's just a maniac. Yeah, I think he's called the Mind Right Maniac or something like that.
We launched this podcast.
Did you really?
Yeah,
no, I didn't. Because he just launched last year.
He launched 2019.
Or 2019.
He's such an intense guy. I love him.
He was launching right after we had him on our show, I think. Yeah. Brian did an interview with him.
That's cool. Todd Durkin's a good guy.
He's totally good to go. Yeah. Well, and that's what I want to get into. Who are some of your most successful clients and some of the shows that you've helped launch or facilitate and stuff? So we know Todd Durkin.
You guys.
Well, Strong by Design, of course, right? What is his podcast name? Is it the Todd Durkin Show or something like that?
I think it's called something Impact.
Oh, it is.
It's not Born to Impact. So I helped Joel Marion launch his show, Born to Impact.
Right.
And I remember talking to Todd, and he wanted to do that name. I'm like, sorry, that name's already taken.
Right. Oh, Todd Durkin Impact Show.
Impact Show. There it is.
That's what it is. I didn't even get to. I just started typing his name, and then the name clicked in my head. Yeah.
Yeah. So Todd Durkin, Katie Ferraro, she is a nutritionist and a dietitian, but she helps moms with baby led weaning. She has 7 kids. I've never seen such a more organized woman, or no, organized person, not woman, like organized person, period. She is so like locked in. I my hat's off to her because she gets it done.
7 children.
7 children. She gets it done. God bless her. Yeah, and super successful woman. Just an amazing person to work with. So Katie Ferraro, Steve Weatherford.
Yeah, Steve. He's going to be on our show. We were going to do a virtual one, but he just had his baby. Do you know his baby who's 12 pounds, 3 ounces, by the way?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Baby Kingston. But we're going to see him in person next month.
That's cool.
So I think we're going to end up just doing it in person with him, which would be way more fun for everybody to podcast with him in person than to do it via Zoom, Yeah. So that's cool. So you got him going with his podcast.
Yeah. And Steve's another really intense guy.
Super intense.
I would say, if you can film that one, because you guys those listening will love that.
I might have to sneak a camera out with us to San Diego when we're out there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Who else? Some other people that may be very familiar. I helped Dan Locke, who's in more of the business space for a period of time. Dan Locke, he's a controversial character, but I know him. I've known him personally a little bit, and he's a very, very bright, insightful guy.
Controversial is good.
Controversy is good.
He gets listeners.
He does. Yeah, exactly. He's a character. So that's another one, and then Sterling Griffin. I didn't launch his show, but I've helped him. We've had some consulting together. He's been a really good guide for me as well. When I think of entertainment, that's one guy I think of is Sterling Griffin. For those who know that name, really good, entertaining guy. His podcast always was very, very high energy.
Yeah,
and I think that is something that if when we talk about what's the number one attribute for. If you to be a top podcaster, it's that energy or being able to be entertaining.
Yes.
However that is for you. Maybe it's just because you have that dry humor going on for you, or maybe you are just a character and you and your co-host play off each other really well, like Mind Pump guys.
Right.
They crack on each other all the time, and it makes the show
amazing.
Well,
they're buddies.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So people feel that bond, that relationship, and it's just like three brothers, just hanging out, going off on a topic, and they'll cut each other, they'll take jabs at each other and stuff like that, and that's what makes it fun,
Yeah, that's hard to copy or also to imitate.
Yeah,
you've got to enjoy yourself and know the person across the table to do that kind of stuff, which makes them a hard kind of brand for other people who are trying to copycat or anything like that. It makes it kind of builds a moat around your podcast, so to speak.
Oh, without question. That's why it's fun to have sometimes more than just one other person when you have multiple people, because it just becomes a fun conversation, and as long as you become a good listener too, and that's what I've had to train myself at. I'm a talker. I've been a talker my whole life. Ever since I was little, I was the little brother. I was always vying for attention and spotlight and stuff. And this is I laugh all the time because, in high school, I wasn't the most athletic. I wasn't the most likely to succeed. I wasn't the best looking. I was the most talkative. And I was also the most gullible. So those are my two. I had two superlatives as a senior in high school. Those are the two. Not proud of either one of them. But I have become a better listener as I've gotten older, and I think podcasting has really helped that, where you get an expert or somebody that, can really, that you're just interested in and learning from. Yeah. Give them the stage. It's you're the host. Direct the conversation, but be a good listener. Yeah. And so I think that's really important if you're an interviewer. If you're doing your own show, you got nobody else to talk to. It's just you. Well, you better be doing a lot of talking. Yeah. But
if you like that, then some people can do it, but it's not easy. I've definitely seen it's definitely an art to doing those solo episodes in a way that's going to convey the right message. And then if you want to send people somewhere or have a great call to action that's tied into what you're talking about, there's definitely a formula to that.
I almost feel like there's more work involved in the solo acts than,
I believe so.
Yeah. I think because there has to be so much preparation for those to keep you on point, to really, just, not that you're reading necessarily what you're saying.
But you have an outline.
But you have a real detailed outline, whereas this is pretty loose. I have 8 lines here of topics for us. Yeah. Because I know it's going to be conversational and we're going to go in different directions.
Exactly.
But when it's just you got to fill the airwaves. One other thing I really want to touch on before we get to kind of this final one. Is length of podcast, because I think that's another big question. Is how long is the perfect length?
Right.
What's your answer?
Over the years, I get this question a lot, and I like it because of my answer is, if you had listened 3 years ago, it's probably different from now. It's kind of grown, and what I've seen is, depends on who you're targeting. So let's just say I look at it as like, the more money they're worth per hour, like the much money like they charge per hour, like CEOs, high level guys have little time. Henceforth, your podcast needs to serve that slither of time that they have.
Right.
Because guess what? They're not probably listening to 2.5 hour podcasts.
No.
Maybe if they're one of those guys who goes out, like, makes time for it, then yeah, maybe. But the vast majority of them don't. So, if you're talking to marketers like myself, I have like a squirrel brain. We're thinking about 1,000 things at once. 15 minutes will do. 5 to 15 minutes for like the higher up you go, or like the more business focused people. Probably 15 minutes, 20 minutes max, I would say. If you're doing like a Real Dictators, they have like 45-minute episodes, sometimes a little bit longer. So it just depends on the audience that you're targeting. I know, for example, like Katie Ferraro, she targets busy moms. So guess what? Busy moms don't have a lot of time.
Right. So under half-hour episodes, I'm sure. All
exactly,
her stuff,
15, 20 minutes around there. So that's usually her sweet spot. But so she knows her audience. So one of the things, a trick I always teach our students, we have like a form for this too, is when you're about to launch a podcast, it's a smart idea to put out a survey. And I think we had you guys put out a survey too, maybe.
Yes, I recall that. Yeah,
but
I do recall that.
Yeah, one of the questions I always ask on there is like, how much time do you listen? Like, how much time do you, on average, listen to podcasts per week? And also what day? So then that gives us some frameworks to look at, or some ideas to look at when we're targeting, figuring out how long the episode should be, when we should drop the episodes per week. We have some actual hard data on your audience, not just some like random statistic from the internet.
Right.
We have that kind of data we can use to kind of dial in the show. So that's my advice. Like, put out a survey, even do like an Instagram poll, like how long do you listen to podcasts?
Yes.
Like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever.
Yeah, so, I did that recently on YouTube. Like, we make so much follow-along workout content, and I put, what's the perfect length of workout? Oh, good. And actually, it was not what I thought. I got I didn't get the answer I thought I was going to get. I put like a 10-minute, 20-minute, 30-minute, and then I think I put like a 5-minute just for fun as D. But I figured the short ones would be the ones that would get the highest vote, the most votes.
Right.
No, it was that people wanted the longer workout, the 30-minute workout. And I'm like, wow, in this busy, crazy world, I thought these like quick little 10-minute and 15-minute routines would have gotten the most popular vote, but they didn't. So that one like threw me for a loop. But again, I learned something there. So I'm like, okay, so when we make workout, it doesn't mean we're not going to make the short workout content. We will, but there's definitely value in making these longer ones because people are watching these things. They're looking for it. So that's awesome. I kind of had that in my head earlier in the conversation. I'm like, I better come back to that because I know for me, I always kind of had that question even once we were rolling with this podcast. Like, is there a length? And I'm like, it varies. Some are 30 minutes, some are an hour and change. I think if you get much over an hour, like an hour and a half, I think you got to split it up.
Yeah, I agree.
We made one just recently with Mike Gillette for our real life self-defense program that he wrote, he created. Mm-hmm. We partnered with him and we published it and put it out there. And I had so much to talk with him about. He's an amazing man in so many different ways. The conversation was an hour and a half. I'm like, that's a part one and part two. No one wants to devote that much time. But 40, 45 minutes, it's doable. It's totally doable. So that's great. So where can people find more Luis Diaz? Obviously, again, your business, Podcast Domination, that's also the name of your podcast that you started. Now, how long have you had your this second podcast rolling now?
This is my third one. So the second one was called Ask the Ab Guy.
Oh, right.
It was a very, very, now I look back at it, a very narcissistic title. But I did it it was a branding play. Like, and it worked. So I'm happy we did that. But it didn't feel good after a while. I was like, we got to change this. But the Podcast Domination Show has been around for 3 years, I'd say.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. For me, it's more of an experimental playground. I like to bring interesting people on there. I will talk about some new stuff that's happening in podcasting, some growth tips that I'm seeing working on the field or like with people that I'm working with. So that one's available everywhere you listen to podcasts. And then besides that, best place to reach me is probably just personal email or business email, Luis@podcastdomination.co. Don't put the M because I don't know where that goes.
Say that one more time for anyone listening.
Sure. Luis@podcastdomination.co.
.co.
Yeah.
I think people are getting used to that. Sometimes it's .org or .whatever,
Right.
.co. I've heard the .co a few times.
Yeah, every now and then people will kick it to .com and they're like, you never replied. I'm like, I never got your email.
I never got that one. We didn't. One thing we didn't really cover, but we didn't really get into like the monetization of a podcast,
right.
and like, and it's honestly, it's only because we don't do that. So I didn't really want to get into. Now, people listening might say, "How do I make money off my podcast?"
Of course.
That's where I think you go listen to the guys like Travis Chappell, who's actually on our show as well.
Cool.
We got a great interview with him. Mike was able to connect with him, and so if you want to learn a little bit more about that, I would go in his direction.
Yeah.
Travis Chappell, he's at the forefront of like the podcast world and connecting people, networking, and making money with your podcast. So we would not be the podcast to learn that from, just because again, we're not at that point that doesn't mean it won't change at some point down the line. But we just loved having these conversations and giving back. And it's a ministry for us, and it's fun for us. Yeah. That's the thing. It's still fun for us.
Yeah, exactly. That's the biggest
we
thing.
like this. Mm-hmm. We enjoy this. It's not like it's work, but it's not work. Mm-hmm. I look forward to Mondays. I like coming to work. I like my work week.
Right.
So I'm just, we talk about that all the time. We're just so fortunate in what we do. That we still bring, and there might be a day that comes that we no longer find the joy and find it fun, and then that's probably a day where we'll stop.
Yeah,
But we're not going to force ourselves to do this. We do it because we just enjoy it. So I thank you so much for your time, dude. You got to come today, get a good workout in.
Yeah,
we got to go eat lunch. You got some free T-shirts.
Man, I definitely got the better end of the deal here. So.
No, I mean, it worked out good for me too. Thursdays are fun here at the gym. That's when we record podcasts oftentimes with guests. They come, they work out with us, we go eat, and then we get to talk, have a fun conversation afterwards while our food's digesting. Yeah. And we've done that many times over the years, and it always leads to a great conversation. So thank you for coming from Miami over to the Tampa side. And I know you have a fun couple of days ahead of you. So really appreciate your time. And people, please go check out Podcast Domination. It's Lewis's podcast. And he gave you his personal email, and he said it twice.
Yeah,
so you have no excuse.
No, should we answer questions or anything you have about podcasting? I'm happy to help out.
I love that, man. I love when you have direct access to somebody. There's people that'll give out their phone number, and they'll still, on the other side, there'll be people that won't put those numbers in or won't put that email in because they're just, oh gosh, I don't know. To be the person that takes advantage when you have the means, when you have the person's contact information, be the one that sends that message, because fewer people do that than you think.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Fewer people do that than you think, and sometimes just one person does it, and it just blows your mind, doesn't it? That like no one else takes action on these things.
Right. It's an open. It's open playing field. It's like, why not? It's a fear of rejection thing. I get it. Like,
yes.
I've been rejected before, and I've reached out to people, and they say no. It's like, it's okay. You move on.
That's
but
right.
That won't happen with me, so don't worry. Just email me.
That's awesome, dude. I appreciate you going that extra mile for people listening. So thank you again so much for choosing Strong by Design. It really means a lot, again, that you're still listening to this wonderful conversation with our guest today. And we, at this point, just ask you, go ahead and share this, hit that 5-star. We would love a review if you could do that. It really means a lot to us. And we look forward to giving you another episode. As always, next week. We release always on Wednesdays and sometimes on Saturdays when we have lots of extra content. We go 2 a week for a little while. So we do extra uploads, but we always release on Wednesdays. So we thank you so much. And you have an amazing rest of the week. And God bless you. Stay strong by design.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, Please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.